Hello, everybody. My name is Van Potts with Preston-Layne and Partners, and I am coming to you today with something that I think is alarming on a number of levels. Now, obviously, I'm in the adult beverage business and I sell wine. So, the first inclination, if you're watching this, might be, well, of course he's going to be upset with this. It's targeting his business. And in all candor and honesty, it really doesn't have anything to do with it, especially if you know any of my other studies and interests that involve metabolic health, health and wellness, aging, cooking, et cetera, et cetera. This is just another extension of the mess that I believe has come with a crony capitalist environment that we have with our government, with world governments, and setting something up. So basically, it hit my news yesterday on my computer and my phone, and I've had several people send it to me, and it was a Wall Street Journal article that basically the headline was, "Do Americans drink too much? Alcohol is driving a debate in Washington, D.C." And okay, so I have a lot of issues with this, and we'll get into them here in a second without going too deep. But this is a mess. And it's a mess because it's manipulating and misleading people. That's the problem. Now, in order to not manipulate and mislead, you have to be educated and you have to understand. So here's the background. There were three people that presented this information. One of them is Canadian, one I'm guessing is Swedish, I don't really know, and one is, I don't know if he's even American either, but it doesn't matter. There's only a little bit of context here, that's it. But the particular individual, Tim Naimi, director of Canadian Institute for Substance Use and Research, Jürgen Rem, senior scientist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and then Kevin Shield, an independent scientist who runs the World Health Organization on Addiction. Okay, so addiction. Great. All right. So anyway, the thing here that these guys try to make the point is that Naimi co-wrote a study in the Journal of American, let me read it exactly so I say it correctly, found that alcohol doesn't make people live longer. He and his co-authors reviewed more than 100 studies on the effect of alcohol. And I want to know what kind of studies those were, because I'm going to get into the studies here in a minute. And nearly 5 million people, 5 million people, and found no amount of alcohol consumption led to people living longer than people who never drank. Okay, so first of all, there's just absolutely no way that they could make that determination. I mean, say what you want, but these guys in Washington going, they can kiss my butt, are 100% correct, because there's no, if you know anything about observational studies versus close-ended trial studies and things like that, you can't do it, right? And I'm going to get into that a little bit more in detail in a minute. But forget about the physical aspects of the thing. What about the mental aspects? And I realize our nation, the United States of America, as well as the world, really don't seem to care or give a rat's ass about mental health and mental well-being, which is incredibly sad and wrong, by the way. But I'm assuming, it doesn't go into the detail here, but I'm assuming for this particular piece that what they're talking about is physical health. So continuing on, it's widely accepted that alcohol is a carcinogen. Widely accepted. Well, the only thing that I have seen that they feel like they have some really good evidence is that alcohol is broken down your liver into aldehydes, and aldehydes are a class 1 carcinogen. All right. I probably should have had cancer 15 times over by now, and I still could end up being diagnosed with cancer. But at the end of the day, this is the type of thing that you cannot look at in a vacuum. It is not possible. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But this led the WHO said last year that no amount of alcohol is safe, largely based on evidence that it causes cancer. And again, that's why they say it's a class 1 carcinogen. So from there, they've gone on to say that there is no amount safe, that nobody should drink anything. And that's what the big fight is over. So Canada went to a complete abstinence and zero benchmark, I believe, earlier this year. And the United States is looking at doing the same thing in 2025. Now, I think abuse of alcohol is a terrible thing. I've been personally affected by it in my family. I've had friends. Overusing alcohol is a bad, bad, bad thing. There's no question about it. But we're not talking about people who have problems with alcohol and alcohol addiction. We're talking about one drink, one drink. So obviously, I don't need to tell you what this could do to the adult beverage business, which is a huge business in the United States and the world, but it's already affecting, and that younger people have already chosen to walk away from alcohol and are now using more cannabis than alcohol. And somehow smoking and bringing something into your lungs is safer than alcohol. I'm not quite sure I understand that, except for I do understand the manipulation that the government and the press has trying to shape people's opinions. So now, why is this a bunch of hogwash? Well, to understand why it's a bunch of hogwash is you have to understand observational studies which observe correlations versus controlled trial studies. All right. So nothing happens in a vacuum. So these people, these 5 million people, so many people, 5 million that they looked at, what were their diets like? What kind of foods were they eating? How much sugar were they eating? And that's just part one of my whole thing with this particular situation, sugar. So, but how much processed, ultra processed foods were they ingesting? How many people were eating fast food 3 times a week, 5 times a week, every day of the week, once a week? Never. That's what they don't address in these studies. So it's a large observational study, which I'm not even sure I would call 5 million large, but 5 million people, they looked at, I don't know, whatever he said, a bunch of different studies. And this was the conclusion that they came to, that it causes esophageal, colon cancer, everything else. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't, because I'm no more qualified to say that it doesn't than anybody else is. But I have a real question when you start telling me that driving 55 miles an hour is deadly, when I have driven 55 miles an hour up to 80 miles an hour and never been in an accident. So it's a complete sham that they're doing this. It's correlation only. There's almost no way to do a close-in trial to observe exactly what happens. And the reason is very simple, because you'd have to get these, even if you said a small group of, say, 100 or 1,000, and you'd have to closely monitor everything they ate, everything they drank, how much, for 5 or 6 years or even longer. Because folks, unless it's a genetic issue, cancer doesn't happen overnight. And that's why at age 60, it's still a possibility for me, of course, but I happen to know that there are bigger issues with metabolic dysfunction and health than alcohol. The other thing I would say too is that, and this is Van Pot's observational, so look it up yourself, don't take my word for it, but the CDC itself, on its own website, while calling drop number 1 of alcohol dangerous, further down says approximately 3 to 12% of cancers are believed related to alcohol. Now, I don't know how many people, I read the statistic, but I can't remember how many people die of cancer each year. But if it's 3 to 12% that they can kind of assume or get to that number, my guess is those are not people that had 1, 2, 3 drinks a day. My guess is those are people that were drinking bottles of vodka or bourbon a day. and that they had some pretty serious problems with alcoholic fatty liver disease, so on and so forth. So um, this is just a blatant way to try to manipulate you, and don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Be contrarian and don't fall for it. Now, the second thing that I want to say, because I'm pretty lit up about this whole thing, it's just aggravating to watch how they just completely blatantly manipulate people, is that, oh, and by the way they're doing it now is really creative. They got to the old guy the way they did with this Wall Street Journal thing, but they're go on YouTube and look up alcohol abuse, and my God, it'll take over your entire YouTube feed because they're getting to younger people with this false agenda and false messaging. Now, what I want to get to before I close this off is the thing that I find really interesting. If these friggin' do-gooders are so interested in improving the health of you and me and all of us around the world, where is the discussion on ultra processed foods? Where is the discussion on sugar? Where are these things being discussed? Well, the answer is that the people that use sugar have more money than the people that make alcohol. That's just the bottom line. And at the end of the day, what I find just absolutely amazing, I mean, yeah, you can find things that say that sugar causes metabolic dysfunction, that sugar does this, sugar does that. You can find all that stuff. It's there. But there's no one getting front page Wall Street Journal press saying that that first Snickers bar is going to cause a lot of problems for you, because it will. And the ultra processed foods with all the chemicals and all the preservatives on them will. Remember, if it's meant to extend shelf life, it's going to shorten your life. And that's what ultra processed foods are all about, with all of the different things they put in them. So anyway, I've gone on long enough about this. This really is really a fascinating and interesting thing. When this whole war on alcohol first got started, I really thought that it was maybe the cannabis industry pushing it, but I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's the ultra processed food people that are and big sugar, and they've done it before. This isn't their first rodeo in any way, shape, or form. But I find it absolutely appalling that they prey on people's ignorance, and they don't understand. There is no way this could be studied in a vacuum. It's not possible. It is not even close to possible. So the idea that they can draw some kind of conclusion based on observing however many studies, I can't remember if it was 10 or 100, whatever the number was, hundreds with 5 million people. No, you can't do that, because you don't know what those people were eating. You don't know what else they were drinking. You don't know what environmental hazards they have. You don't know how many nonstick pans they have in their home. You don't know how many times they go out to eat. You don't know any of that stuff. So the idea that they can make this conclusion is ridiculous. Understand the difference between an observational study and a closed-in trial, and that will help you. So anyway, don't be manipulated, people. Don't be. Remember that your brain and your thoughts and your mind are up for sale to the highest bidder. And if these people can get to you by telling you what you want to hear, they're going to get to you by telling you what you want to hear. That's what they do. And it's even more tricky and dangerous now, because the algorithms absolutely paint things for you to listen to and to hear that, put you in even more of an echo chamber, and you don't want that. All right, so that's it for now. Thanks very much, Van Potts with Preston-Layne and Partners. This was as much personal as it was work, because it really frustrates me. I hope you'll take the time to remember that they can't study this stuff in a vacuum. It's not possible. And that these are observational, correlation-only studies, which don't carry a lot of weight. Thanks very much. Have a great day.